Hey guys, welcome to the Leadership in the Dealership podcast, where we strive to share the latest and greatest trends shaping automotive with today's thought leaders. I'm your host, Danielle Mills Walden. I'm super excited to be here today with Durran Cage. So welcome to the show, Durran. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle. It's exciting to be here.
It is. I feel like every time that we connect, it's always a awesome conversation. And I'm just going to dive right in because there's so much I want to talk to you about. So first, you've served so many different roles in your career, whether it be from the OEM side as a district sales manager to your GSM days or your internet manager days, and now as a founder of your own business. Can you maybe talk a little bit about your career and kind of how it's paved the way to where you are today?
Wow. I don't know. I would say, to sum up a lot of the career, very similar to you, Danielle, from watching you and your journey, is this just keep learning. You just keep learning and you keep evolving and growing, because a lot of things that we learn at the beginning of our career, it just stacks on top of one another. It's almost like learning math in school, right? It's like you build that foundation of addition, subtraction, then it just keeps going and going and going. And that's what I've seen with our career, and with mine especially, is just connecting with the right people, staying a student to the business, and keeping a vision in front of you. Like just knowing, being, every time I've been clear in my career or where I'm trying to help a client go to or whatever, the easier it makes my life, just having that playbook for success. And so I would say that's what I've learned along the career that I'm still living. I'm excited. And so it's been great. And then, of course, having good mentors, people like yourself, people that you can learn from. Those things always go a long way, because there's really not much of a secret to success. A lot of the path is already out there. It's just on us to pick the right path that's for us and then just go all in on it.
No, that's a really great point. Having mentors is extremely important. And I love how you talked about stacking all of that experience kind of stacked up together to be where you are here today, which makes a ton of sense because you've had a lot of extensive experience. But I'm curious, from your perspective, from working in the dealership, I'm sure that there were a lot of different gaps that you noticed when you were on that side of the fence. And, what kind of caused you to want to move and work alongside dealers as more of a consultant or coach, as opposed to, being in the dealership as a manager?
I would say the love for people, because if you backtrack and look at my career before I really got into the automotive industry, when I started selling cars in '02, I was also a basketball coach. And that was one of my favorite jobs. It still is. I still coach basketball, coach my boys. And there's something about when you pour into people and and they buy into that philosophy, the teaching, and then you watch them grow. There's not amount of money that can come from that would make you feel that much better. And so fast forward to the auto industry, Cage Automotive in the training business was really born when I was running a dealership as a GSM in Jackson, Tennessee, for my owner, Alan Vines, because he really believed in training. I'm talking about every day. He trained us from 8 a.m. to 8:30. Then we had another meeting after that meeting from 8:30 to 9, then another meeting after that from 9 to 10. And so I would do so much training and coaching at that dealership, coaching the sales managers, coaching the salespeople, the BDC, the internet. And I love doing that. And so when I got out of the retail environment, I just kept doing that. It was just doing it for more dealers, because what I've noticed in our industry, sometimes not everybody wants to train and coach people. Like, that's an art. And I know you've seen this as well. Like, when you're connecting and talking to people, it's an art, and you have to want to pour into people. And there's a shortage of that in our industry. There's not enough trainers and consultants out there. They always act like there's that one trainer that's good for this. But in all fairness, we need so many more people that are pouring into others, and it just we keep paying it forward to one another. But that's where how I moved outside of retail, and I've gone both inside and out. It's just been all about loving people, pouring into them, and just coaching them up.
Wow, you talk about like the impact of training and how at that dealership, it's kind of a blessing that, like, I don't know if that was the first dealership you were at, but that they were so invested in training, and it was such an important part of the DNA of that store. So much so that, for you, it's second nature. But I'm sure as you travel across the country and you work with dealerships, you're working with a lot of dealerships that don't have that type of environment, and you're kind of coming in to be that person for them, or trying to help teach the teacher, in a sense of like help them develop better ways that they can help their staff. So that kind of leads me to this next point. I know that you work really closely with a lot of different internet teams and BDC teams, and I'm curious from your perspective, like, what would you say is the biggest like misconception about those teams? I feel like they get undervalued a lot, but I know you work so closely with them. I'm curious what you would feel like is the biggest misconception about those BDC and internet teams.
Danielle, you didn't have to go there. It's a soft spot because in my journey, that was my turning point, was being a BDC rep, then being an internet director, and then that's how I got to that GSM role. But the internet team and those leaders are so important because most of the business is touching there. We know that a majority of shoppers, when they get on, before they purchase a vehicle, they're going to go online. They might call, they might text, they might email, whatever that thing is. And so what I'm passionate about now with these internet teams goes back to that first question we have to keep evolving, is that our BDC and internet teams are not evolving at the pace that they need to evolve at. Meaning we have, for example, an Upstart or something. Well, we have a great tool, great resources on our website to educate customers and make it easier for them to buy a vehicle. But then sometimes when those customers are interacting with these teams, we're withholding information from those customers because we're focused on getting those customers in. And a lot of that is coming from our pay plan. Our compensations are still compensations from back in the late 90s and early 2000s, where our comp is designed to get people in the door. They're not rewarding for, and I'm not speaking for all dealers, but the majority that I'm seeing is we're not rewarding the behaviors that create the better experience for that customer. So an example would be, we're going to reward you and compensate you for every proposal that you send out to a customer that's gone down that path off our website. We're going to reward you for the videos that you send. We're going to compensate for that. And by doing that, it compensates the employee for doing the things that lead to a great experience for the customer that will still lead to a sale. And the compensation does not have to actually change from a financial statement standpoint. It's just the way that we're rewarding our team needs to be in alignment with where the customers are trying to go. Because you have the customers that want one thing, and then we have employees that are being forced to do another, and that's where there's a disconnect. And so we have to make sure that these teams are being empowered. There's a reason why, as an internet director, I went from internet salesperson to a general sales manager. It wasn't that I just skipped all those things. I still had to learn how to desk deals. I had to learn the F&I part. And I'm not seeing enough of that with our BDC departments, where we're evolving them and teaching them how to structure a deal, how to spin paper. Like, everybody needs to evolve and learn those things without worried about another leader being threatened by that position, because sometimes we let our egos get in the way. But I'm thankful that the leaders that I worked for back in those days, they invested in me, to your point about training, to say, hey, what do you need to make your job better to help us grow as a company? And those were the things that were needed.
Wow, that's really powerful, because I know that a lot of the dealers listening to this may be caught off guard because they've never thought of, incentivizing their team to have different behaviors. So much it's just get them in, get them in, get them in the door. We'll handle it once they're here. But even that dynamic of just trying to get somebody in, that really is completely not acknowledging what that customer wants. And to your point, if we can acknowledge the behavior and get them, incentivize them to do another step or move down the funnel even more, get even closer, so that by the time they do come in, it's already done or they've done everything. I'm curious, in your experience, like, what do those conversations look like when you're, talking to a GM about this crazy idea that you have to change behaviors? Do you find that they are receptive, or does it take a lot of convincing, or what does that look like? Maybe talk to us about what are some of those conversations. How do they go?
The best way that I've seen to get a general manager or a general sales manager, whatever title that is, to understand it is for them to, I'll sit down with them, and I post about this a lot, anybody knows, but I'll just say, let's get on your phone real quick and let's get online and try to buy a car from your dealership. When we do that, that's when the light bulb goes off. They're like, oh my gosh. Because what managers will see is that, wow, we have so much information on our website. What is it that the customer needs at that point? And that's what I'm telling them. That's what we need to ask. It might be that they come in, but it's what you said in your last question. You talked about steps. And that's the way that we need to communicate to the customer and say, hey, Danielle, you just went online and I've received your information and you did X, Y, and Z. Congratulations. You saved a ton of time. What's the next step you would like to take? And so now Danielle is in the driver's seat, and you are now saying, well, the next step I'd like to see is what the total out the door would be with that service contract added and one without it. You're going to hear different questions because the customer is so used to everybody like, you ready to buy? You know, do you have a down payment? But it's just asking those questions. And then another thing that will get a general manager or anybody to understand is ask them, how did you buy your last car? And when we buy cars, those of us that are in the industry, most of us want to know most of our detail up front. You know, we're like, all right, I just need to know, what's the rate going to be? Do I need to lease it? What does it look like? What's our best incentive here? And then tell me, what would it look like if I put X amount down? And then all that happens. And then we show up and we either look at the car, we pick the car up, or we have it delivered. And we're all about that business. But when we are teaching our teams to connect with customers, we're teaching a different experience than what we would want ourselves, whether we're buying something on these large online retailers. Their whole focus is making it easy for a customer to buy the way that they want to. So I'm not saying here, I'm not trying to make a statement as an advocate saying customers don't want to come in. Customers want to shop the way that they want to shop. Right. It's no different at the grocery store, right? You can pick it up, you can self-scan, you can get checked out. It's some places, but there's all these different ways. And so now it's about giving customers options, but then having a playbook for each option for the customer that wants to do email, that wants to do text, that wants to do call, that wants to come in. There should just be a playbook for each one that everybody's in alignment with that makes sense.
Yeah, that really spoke to me because you were talking about, like, you know, what does that car buying experience look like? And I can even speak for myself, you know, kind of recently when I purchased the last vehicle that I purchased for our business. And I, you know, did this in Florida, and I reached out to maybe 5 or 6 different dealers. And when I asked them, you know, can I get a out the door number for this car? Here's what I'm going to be putting down. Here's my trade. There was maybe, out of the 10 dealers I reached out to, maybe only one actually responded to me and acknowledged what I had actually asked for. The others were just like blowing me up saying, when can I come in? And I can't give you that over the phone. I'm not allowed to. And they were just, it just sounded so like they were withholding this information. And I had to put my customer hat on, like, this is a terrible experience. And, like, you know, we train dealers how to do this, but so many dealers don't understand that this is the front line. These are who's talking to your customers. And you know, I'm going to go with the dealer that is going to cater to what I'm looking for. But to take that one step further, I know that you are like a pioneer when it comes to video and being a expert in really training people on the power of video when it comes to these teams, internet teams, BDC teams, sales teams. Can you maybe talk to, like, why video is so important in what you teach, and what kind of results are your dealers seeing that are incorporating that personalized video into their outreach?
Yeah, I would say with video, of course, I'm a nerd. I look at data all the time, right? So there's a lot of stats. So I don't know when people are going to be watching this podcast, because they could be watching this in 2025, 2026. Who knows? So I would encourage them, just hop online on Google and do this search and say, what percentage of people utilize video when they're researching for a car? And see what the stats say. And that should be your answer as to why you should send videos or not. But the most recent one that was a few years ago was like 84% of shoppers at some point are going to get online to look at videos to research about their vehicle. So my logic is, why would I want a customer to have to do that? If they're going to do it, I want to deliver it to them. I want to make it easy. I want them to have that video experience. I want it on the website. I want it in the CRM. I want it in social media. Because one thing, and I know you know this as well, Danielle, the conversations are different when you connect with customers after you've sent them a video. That has summed up the last 4 or 5 years of my career. Every dealership that I've worked with has connected with me because of videos that they saw on LinkedIn or another social media platform, or because I sent them an email video or a video behind the scenes on LinkedIn. I learned that from somebody, right? But about taking the connection past the connection.
Mhm.
So for me, I don't understand when a salesperson is like, I don't want to send a video. It makes me nervous. I'm like, of course, I was nervous too, but we're not doing it for them. We're doing it, or we're not doing it for us. Excuse me. We're doing it for them. But I always tell a story to the students that I work with. It's like, you can either do the videos up front and be proactive, or you can wait until you're put into a situation where you have to where you have to keep your job if that's where you work, or you have to make your income. And that's what happened with me. My business almost went out. I didn't do, if people look back in 2018, I wasn't really doing videos like that. I was going off of the brand that I had already created because I didn't believe in social media and none of that stuff. But it was the day after Christmas. It was on December the 26th when I got fired from one of my clients because they offered me a marketing position. So they said, hey, man, we want you to be our full-time marketer. And I said, well, I want to see what happens with this Cage consulting thing, you know? And they're like, well, okay, you're fired. I was like, can I at least get a check for this month? I hadn't been paid yet. Well, then another client got bought out the same week, right before New Year's Eve. So I only had one client left, and I hadn't even been in business for a year. And I got on YouTube and recorded my first video on December the 31st, 2018. And then January, February, you can look back at my old bootleg YouTube videos, and I just keep wearing it out, wearing it out. And next thing you know, I got all my business back and some, just by getting my voice out there on video. And now it's got me, it's provided so many opportunities for me that I'm, of course, sending it out to the world. I'm like, there is no secrets. Be who you are on video and get that out. But back to the auto side, the reason why it's so important is it's a great addition to what we're talking about. Like, whether it be if you're trying to be a leader in your community, if you're trying to increase sales, using video just shortens that time of what a customer needs in terms of all that verbiage and everything. When somebody puts in a request online for a vehicle and you come out there with a video and it's talking about the next steps and how easy you make it, and there's video reviews, who would argue against that when you're going against another dealership that it does not provide that experience? That's the reason why to do it.
So powerful. Like literally, if I had a dealer who I inquired about their vehicle and they're sending me a personalized video catering to me, introducing themselves, saying, hey, this is such and such, this is how easy this is going to be. I'm so excited that you did these steps. Here's what's next for you. And it's just, that experience just really takes things to the next level. And I'm sure the stories you work with that have begun to implement this, they're seeing a big difference when it comes to their CSI scores, just the overall experience. They're getting referrals because of it. And it's just a completely different experience. So the power of video is just crazy good. So I'm glad that that's something that you really uniquely focus on. I don't know a lot of other people who really make that be a key part of their training, and I could see why it's done so well. But to kind of switch gears a little bit, I know that you are super passionate when it comes to EVs, and that's super hot topic right now with the EV vehicles. So, like, what advice would you give to dealers who are looking to get more into the EV space, or maybe they have a lot of EVs on their lots and they don't know how to connect or move those cars? What's something that you can maybe advise some of these dealers to do, because it doesn't seem like they're going anywhere. So how do we handle this EV revolution?
Yeah. So the reason why I've been passionate a little bit about EVs, it's not that I believe that that's where this world needs to go or anything like that. I mean, everybody has their own opinion, but what what I get excited about EVs is it's giving the dealers another opportunity. You know what I mean? To like
Yeah.
reclaim our name. I'm all automotive industry. Let's go. even I was so excited because on the last consumer buying journey, the customer satisfaction index went up for the car buying experience. So I get geeked. I'm like, yes, we're doing it. So when it comes to EVs, dealers now have an opportunity to be those thought leaders and those forefront people, because the data, again, going back to the data, majority of customers are really leaning on dealers when it comes to EVs. They're leaning on their information. Hey, is this right for me? Talk to me about range anxiety. Talk to me about this battery health thing. Talk to me about, should I even consider this? And so there's two types of dealers. There's the dealers that are like, I can't stand EVs. It got forced on us and I'm sick of it. Then there's the other dealers that are like, listen, it's here anyways. Let's make the best out of it that we can.
Mhm.
And those are the dealers that I like to align with, to say that, hey, here's an opportunity. There's two groups of people we need to educate in order for EVs to really, I'm not going to say take off, but to create an extra layer of your brand where customers are like, oh my gosh, I'm team ABC Motors. And that's educating the customers and educating your employees. It's all it takes, is educate the customers by talking to them about what their concerns are around EVs, right? Especially the female audience. It's super important. From every
Mm.
study that they've shown, is around females have to feel really comfortable and get their questions answered as to why they should move forward with that, especially either whether it's for traveling needs, whatever that reason is. I just think women, maybe they just think a little bit further about, does this make sense? Not just financial sense, but logistic sense. So educate everybody, regardless of what they look or sound or look like, whatever, but educate them, and then educate them on what your dealership has done. So hold EV events, educational events, let people come in and do ride and drives. That's that part that gets me excited, because there's not enough content on social media to meet the demand of people that are researching, that are looking for dealerships standpoint. And then the other side is educating our employees. And the best way to do that is, again, have them come in the room. What don't we like about these EVs? What's the problems with it? How are we marketing? How are we educating ourselves on this? And one of my best clients, that what they did is they let every employee do an EV for, I think, a day or two. Whew, mind blowing. The stories that they had, the people that were asking them questions, the buy-in that they got from leadership all the way down to detail. So it takes that. So then that way, the more that our employees get engaged and excited about it, whether they want to sell one or whether they want to buy one for themselves or not, it's about being prepared for what the customer is trying to do. So if a customer wants gas or an ICE vehicle, they want hybrid, or they want an EV or a BEV vehicle, we just want to make sure that as our team, are we equipped to ask the right questions and guide them, because an EV is not for everybody. And if the team, one of the worst things that could happen is when a customer is all about the EV and we don't ask the right questions and we sell them a car, and then they come back a week or 2 weeks later and say, this won't work for me because of X, Y, and Z, right? So that's where my passion comes from that. So it's a great question. But for those dealers listening, if you hadn't even started yet, I would just start with education. Just educate your team first, get your customers, survey them, and have some fun with it, because it gives you an opportunity, again, to expand on your brand and show customers that you're flexible.
Wow, you said a lot of great things there. I'm like, where do I even start? I love the fact that you brought up, obviously, the education of your staff first. But when you were talking about, hold EV events where people could come and ask questions and learn, it immediately gave me like this light bulb moment of like when I go into like an Apple store and they're doing
Yeah.
like trainings, and people are confused, they can come in and they're in the environment to get the help they need, but they're also in the environment to make a buying decision. So it's kind of the same. You could get customers in there and get their questions answered. And the second thing that really was an aha moment for me was, I don't know what dealership that was, but it should be every dealership listening in this to this episode should think about, if I have EVs on my lot, why wouldn't I put a salesperson in that car for half a day,
Yeah.
and let them have a true experience with that product, so that way they can answer those questions from a standpoint of actually knowing versus just rattling off some talking points that they've been trained on. Totally different experience. Like when you go to the restaurant and the servers actually ate everything on the menu versus they're like, oh, you should get the sea bass because they know it's like the most expensive thing. No, like they've actually tried it. It's way different from that experience. So I don't know, really powerful things that you said here because like you mentioned, they're not going anywhere, but the education is huge. And then also going back to what you had mentioned about females wanting to, know more of those details. When you were saying that, I was thinking about like I'm always thinking about the what if scenarios. Like, well, what if I'm caught somewhere? Like what? So arming your salespeople with those, FAQs that we can anticipate that people will ask is going to make them set up for success and ultimately help us with this whole EV thing. Because we know that it's not going anywhere. It's only going to increase, but we can look at it as a positive instead of as a burden. And to your point, I've traveled a lot around the country like you, and there's so many dealers that are so negative when it comes to it. And they're like, I'm being forced to do this and nobody likes them. And that energy is just translating to the customer. Like even if a customer comes in wanting to know more, it's like they're just swaying them away from it instead of using that as an opportunity. So a lot of key things that you mentioned here. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and I'll add one last part to that is
Yeah.
that the opportunity when I talk about that brand, to your point, is imagine you got your EV from a store that you could tell you just got it because they had the inventory, but it wasn't all that in a bag of chips. You're like, man, this is terrible. But then another dealer in that same city that you didn't buy from is holding an EV event for all customers. Bring your EVs here, bring your questions. Think about that dealer. Now they have a way to get that customer in their database, right? Data is a big word, but then
Mhm.
also for service, because some people are still looking at fixed ops and they're like, oh, there's no way for service. That they couldn't be more untrue. There's still a huge opportunity for fixed ops and service because these customers are going to have questions, software updates, issues. You still got tire maintenance. There's so much. And every survey has shown that customers will lean more on going back to the OEM dealer than they are the independents. So again,
Mhm.
a perfect opportunity for that dealership to grow their brand by just keeping an open mind.
Absolutely. It's so important to not box off any opportunities that you could have, unknowingly or knowingly. But I'm curious from your perspective when it comes to working with a dealer that is going to implement a new technology. Let's say, I'm sure you have a couple dealers in your arsenal that get really excited when they go to different trade shows or events and they're like, oh, we got to try this new thing. And they don't think about the repercussions of, okay, I bought this, now what? What are some of the things that when you work with dealers and they've recently brought on a new technology partner, whether it's, a DR solution, a CRM, data acquisition, doesn't matter the technology, but what are some things that you like to work with that team to ensure that the rollout and implementation is a success?
What I've seen success with, number one is, and it might be the only point I have, but it's to have a champion. So I always call them, so if it's digital retailing or something, we need to have a DR champion. If it's chat, we need to make sure that we have a chat champion. And all this person is they're that person that as we bring on new hires, right? Because we're hiring people or people being removed, replaced, whatever, but there needs to be somebody that's in store that understands that product and how it works, and they're connecting with that vendor partner or that company, and they're still the leadership team still has to be in there with them as well. But from a support standpoint, if there's anything simple that this champion is hearing from the floor, they can quickly just go and text that company or send them an email and be like, hey, here's what we've got going on. Because whenever there's a champion in terms of any kind of technology or even EVs, same thing with EVs, you have a champion. But if there's a technology tool like we're using iPads or something in the dealership and we're going to do in-store retailing, but do it in a digital way, having that champion is somebody that even is both customer and employee facing. So that
Mhm.
way, if the customer and the employer are having a hiccup in that process, that champion can just hop on over there and help everybody out. That champion is every single week is training everybody like, hey, here's some new updates. Here's a different way. Because what I've learned about technology that's so cool is that a lot of times you can use things in multiple different ways, right?
Mhm.
So same thing with video. We can talk about video, but video can be used for fixed ops. It can be used for whatever. There's so many different ways to use video. Same thing with digital retailing. It doesn't just have to be on the website as a widget. It can be pushed out. It can be used as a kiosk. It can be these. And so having that champion is what helps whatever tech that we have within the store evolve to what it actually can be that fits the culture of that dealership.
Yeah, it's powerful. Without a champion, it's almost not going to succeed because you have to get everybody that has different roles and different expectations on the same page about, what is the ultimate goal of this solution. And that champion is kind of the glue that kind of holds everything together. So I'm glad that you mentioned that having a champion is extremely, extremely important. But since you're big about processes and technology, I'm gonna make you think a little bit. Of all the dealers you've worked with, one of the aspects of the show that we love is we have an opportunity to really give a dealer like a shout out that has really been pushing the needle and has been really innovative when it comes to their leadership, their technology, their processes. And I'm curious if you've had a dealership you worked with recently or just at any time that you'd want to give a shout out to based off of what they've been doing, with those things. So do you have a dealership in mind you'd like to give a shout out to?
Danielle's gonna get me in so much trouble, y'all. All my
No.
clients, I love you all. Just no, I would say recently, because all the clients that I have, the ones they know, the ones that are there embracing proposal presentations online and more videos, they're already doing it. So hats off to those of them that have been rock with me for the last 3 or 4 years. But most recently, there's a store called Hyundai of Columbia. There's 2 stores, Hyundai of Columbia and Ford of Columbia, outside of Nashville. And what encourages me more about everything about them is they're an upfront price store. So I always have a passion towards people that are kind of like a one price because you have to load up the value. But it makes it easier to help customers online when you're set up as a transparent business. So 1, they're transparent. 2, everything is dialed in to not just doing the video, but how the video is done, and then managers. And this is why I would highlight them is that their managers have grown their business substantially just by them sending videos to customers. So what they'll do, one of the guys sent it to me. I couldn't believe it, but they'll send a video on, and I was going to bring my phone up, but I'm not going to do it, but they'll send a video and literally will say, "Hey, Danielle, my name is Dan. I'm over here at the dealership. I know my team reached out to you yesterday, but I wanted to personally connect with you and make sure that you have all the information that you need. So please let me know, reply back on anything I can do for you. I'm here for you." He showed me all the responses that he was getting. There was only, out of 8 videos he sent to customers, only 1 did not reply. And that was huge because leadership involvement and engagement, no matter what kind of technology, no matter EV, does not matter. When people see leaders leading up front and doing the things that the Durran Cages or whatever trainer you bring in, when that person comes in, no different than you, like with your company, when they come in, it's about what happens when you leave. And that store went in and they sent me all kinds of proof. So I thought that was really good. And they're all about the digital retailing, being upfront and creating an experience that keeps customers coming back over and over again. And they're one of the only stores that I've seen that promotes fixed stops heavily at the beginning part of the process, because they do something that's kind of unheard of, where every customer can get in that dealership in and out same day, no matter what. So same day service is kind of unheard of. Not many dealerships do that. And no matter what customer, whatever they need, they offer same day service, and they guarantee that. And they have that as part of the sales process. So you can imagine if you're local or within a 50-mile radius and somebody tells you, "Hey, Danielle, just so you know, you'll never have to wait for service. We do same day." That will capture 20 to 30% more business just on convenience alone, because most people have seen, and this is no disrespect to dealers and their service departments, but a lot of them are backed up because of staffing, getting more advisors and techs. It's been hard. But the fact that this GM there, shout out to Chris, but this GM there came from a fixed ops background and he's running the store. And so he has fixed ops at the forefront of how his business runs. And I thought that was really, really unique.
Wow, that is setting the bar very high. Dealers, if you're listening to this, can you offer same day service? Think about your processes, think about your dealership. What would it take for you to offer that? And how much value would that provide your customers if you could throw that in? So, so many great things that you mentioned there with the video and the leadership, sending the videos. Like, it's powerful. Once you get that validation that somebody responds, it's just those good habits continue. And now I'm sure that management team is on a roll. Now they're never going to go back. They're never going to go back. So I'm so glad that you mentioned them and gave them the shout out that they absolutely deserve. So before we wrap up, I'd love to get from you, what is your bold prediction for the auto industry in 2024? We have a long year ahead of us. What do you see is what's coming, and how can we prepare?
I, I would say the dealers that it's two part dealers that really leverage the data that they have within their database, like all these customers that they've acquired or connected with over the years, the dealers that are the sharpest with how they connect with the customers that they already have connected to them are going to win, because it saves from a marketing expense standpoint. The cost to attract a new customer versus the cost to retain one are on completely different sides. So
Mm-hmm.
the dealer who uses their marketing dollars and their processes and systems to really connect deeper and go further with the customers that they already have and focus more on retention. So imagine your marketing budget is 60 to 70% focused on retention and only 20 to 30% towards acquisition of newer customers and conquesting. I've not seen many dealers go down that path, but when they do, you can't even spend the kind of money that you were spending traditionally on your current customer database. So that's one. And then I think the second one that's really important is, I've been talking about this a lot, but a dealership playbook. Dealerships really need to make sure that they have a playbook that starts with employees before they get hired. So the onboarding process is still a little broken that I'm seeing in a lot of stores, because it's kind of clunky. When you hire somebody, they're kind of still on that mentorship path, and then they're here, then it's like, all right, go find a friend. And in 2024, the dealers that have a really thorough system, because now you have AI, there's so many tools to make it to where if we hired somebody like a Danielle, who's a new person in the business, first time selling a car, that person needs to come into our industry with a really thorough process and system to get them fired up. Because if any of us have never sold cars before and we just got into the automotive industry and we went to a store that was like, all right, hey, do your OEM training and Bobby's going to train you here in a second for a couple of days, and then you're off to the races. That person, if they don't make it, will probably never come back to the industry again. And then now they have this weird taste about what our automotive industry is like. So that would be the two answers to your question. The bold prediction will be dealers will win that really leverage their data and they're smart with how they connect with those shoppers and use the technology and the tools that they have to identify who more than likely is going to be in the market next. And then the second part is the development of our personnel from before they get hired to where they're trying to go over the next 5 years. Because when you look at the best run corporations and companies out there,
Mm-hmm.
they don't bring people in with go out there and sell, sell, sell. The best ones are like, where are you trying to go? What do you really want to do with your life? And how can we help you get there? And that the dealers that are connecting with their employees, talking to them like that, same way you would talk to a customer, where are you trying to go? What's the next step we need to take? Should be the same way with an employee. Where are you trying to go? What's the next step our company can do to help you get there? Are you trying to buy a house right now? Are you trying to clear up your debt? Let us help you with that. We have resources to connect with you and make your life better, not just your employee experience.
Wow, I love that so much because as you were saying that, it was making me think about your career and how where you started from and how you evolved so much within the store that you were at. And I'm sure if, when you started, somebody would ask you, Duran, what are your goals? Where do you want to be? I don't know if you would have said, I want to be a GSM. I want to run this store. But just to know that that is possible and that's a possibility. And with the right guidance, leadership, training, anything is possible. And I think, to kind of close things, having the right person guiding you through is super, super important. So with that, how can people get in touch with you? How can they access your information? So if they want to connect or they want to work with you down the road, what do they need to do?
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the easiest places, if they are on social media, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can find me there, Durran Cage with two R's. Yes, I was named after Duran. No hatred there, but no, but I do have two R's. So Durran Cage, you can just Google that, or you can go to our website, cageautomotive.com, and you'll see my phone numbers on all those publications. So you can text me and it literally will come right to my phone. And I'm always here to connect, help, and grow, whether it's vendor partners, dealers, whoever. I still talk with customers, but whatever I can do to help somebody get to their next step, I'm here to help. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Durran, for being here, sharing your wisdom and all of your great tips. And we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Upstart. Thank you, everybody. This has been fun. And thank you for all your help, Danielle, along the way. I appreciate it.